together, but then they die. They sing it tougher before we'll discover that each of us has their own rise. They sing it tougher before we'll discover that's how I feel about this right now. Holding on, yeah, holding on, yeah, holding on. One moment.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for Stratford Chefs School's second webinar, Behind the Scenes. Today, you're going to hear from various alumni of the Stratford Chefs School, and you're going to find out what it's really like to be a student at Culinary School. My name is Elizabeth Kerr, and I'm Director of Marketing and Admissions Development, and I am a graduate of the school as well. Today, we have many of you joining in from different parts of the world, different time zones, and we're thrilled that you're here. Special guests include board member David Stones and advisory group member Jeff Leaney. Thank you to everyone for joining in. The format of the webinar today will be that there is a question and answer button on the bottom of your screen, as well as the chat button. Please feel free to pose your questions as you see fit in real time, and we will take breaks to answer those questions. It's my thrill to introduce our panelists today. Executive Director Kim Cosgrove is an alumni of the school, has worked in various fine restaurants, and now leads the school. She has undertaken capital projects and keeps everything in order every day. Following Kim, we have Daniel Cassar, who is a recent graduate. He graduated just this past June, and he joins us from Elora, where he works at Elora Mill Hotel and Spa. Jazmyn Munn graduated in 2021. She is also working at Elora Mill and joins us today. Randi Rudner will be starting off our panelist discussion. Randi is the head chef at the Prune Restaurant, is our program manager, and a chef instructor. Randi, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Hello. As Elizabeth mentioned, my name is Randi Rudner, and I am the program manager as well as an instructor at Stratford Chefs School. I work very closely with students in my administrative capacity. I do report cards and career planning, scheduling, time management, and so on. And I also teach in both the kitchen and the classroom. I am a graduate of the chef school, and in addition to my responsibilities at the school, I'm a working chef during the summer season here in Stratford. I didn't plan on becoming a chef. I grew up in Montreal and moved to Ontario when I was 19. I went to university. I took an undergraduate degree in philosophy with a minor in classics. I genuinely thought I was headed for a career as a lawyer or in public policy. I fell into the industry quite by accident and eventually found myself wanting to learn more and more about food and cooking. I spent 8 years at my first kitchen job, and when I had absorbed everything I could there, I left for a different, somewhat more ambitious kitchen and worked my way up to the sous chef position. As luck would have it, that restaurant was owned by graduates of the Stratford Chefs School. They encouraged me to broaden my horizons and consider attending. It took some time for me to get my life in order, but I did eventually make my way to Stratford. and this school was a perfect fit for me. By the time I came to Stratford, I was 31. I had been cooking in restaurants for about 11 years, and I had some terrible habits. I didn't hold a knife correctly. My knife work was inefficient. I held sauté pans in the wrong hand, and I had had very limited exposure to the fundamentals of cooking. In a lot of ways, I was a bit envious of some of my classmates who were fresh out of high school. They could learn good technique right off the hop instead of having to break bad habits first. Stratford Chefs School was a revelation to me. The quality and depth of the instruction, the rigorous insistence on proper technique, the uncompromising standards all opened my eyes to the kind of chef I wanted to be and gave me something to aspire to. In addition to the hard skills that the chef school gave me, I found myself immersed in a very small, very personal community of instructors and like-minded peers, which was almost the complete antithesis of my university experience at a very big impersonal school. The students here are all single-mindedly devoted to culinary excellence. The instructors are expert in their fields. The chef instructors are working chefs. The business instructor is a business owner in the hospitality industry. The restaurant design instructor designs restaurants for a living, and so on. There's something to be said for attending a school that focuses so narrowly on just a single thing. Our culinary program is literally all we do. It is not one program in a sea of other programs. Stratford Chefs School is a very small institution that has been training apprentice cooks since 1983. There are no more than 75 students in both level 1 and level 2 combined. Our faculty is also very small. And so the instructors and the students really get to know each other, and a mentoring relationship between faculty and students is easily fostered. The small size means that students get a lot of personal attention from their instruction, from their instructors and from the administration. Nobody slips through the cracks, and problems are addressed swiftly, but also students who would benefit from extra enrichment are attended to quickly as well. The program is very hands-on. Students are in the kitchen cooking beginning on week 1, day 1. They learn by doing and tasting rather than by observing, which is the case in a lot of bigger schools. Our program is so short, so short. Just 16 weeks for first year and another 17 weeks for second year. It goes by unbelievably quickly, but our curriculum is very, very full. We squeeze really a lot of cooking and learning into those 33 weeks. The curriculum here is very well-rounded in the kitchen, the dining room, and in the classroom. In addition to practical cookery, all of our students take pastry in both first and second year. All of our students take service classes and do service work in the dining room. All of our students take nutrition, business, restaurant design, wine class in both level 1 and level 2, food history, writing and communications, food science, contemporary food politics, and of course, food costing and sanitation. Our goal with this curriculum is to give our students a very thorough grounding in the fundamentals of hospitality so that upon graduating, they can go on to do a lot of different kinds of things. Many graduates pursue cooking, but some go on to do recipe testing or food writing or photography, wine consulting, and even teaching. Our students get to run a restaurant. We are open to the public for dinner 5 nights a week. Second year students do the cooking in the kitchen, supervised by a chef instructor, of course. And they also fill the senior service positions in the dining room. They work as host, sommelier doing wine pairings, and maitre d', also supervised on the floor. First year students participate in the restaurant labs as servers on the floor and as dishwashers in the kitchen. The whole school works together to make these restaurant dinners come alive. The menu and style of the restaurant is different every single night, and there is a different rotation of students in each position every night. So in truth, it's more like we open a new restaurant every single night of the year, or 80 of them in just 16 weeks. The menus range from classic bistro fare to internationally inspired small plates to menus inspired by the great 3-star restaurants of the world. In the third quarter of the year, the second year students have the opportunity to each design their own dinner menu and present it to guests in the dining room. They work with their supervising chef instructor to devise a theme and develop recipes, and also put together the budget and the purchase order for their night. In the final quarter of the year, guest chefs from Ontario and further afield visit the school and work with students on menu of their own design to bring a taste of their restaurant here to Stratford. Many students take great inspiration from the guest chefs and go on to work with them. I think cooking is meaningful work. And after 22 years of cooking in kitchens, I still find it very satisfying. My goal for my students is to help them to find themselves in hospitality and to find that facet of the hospitality industry that satisfies them and gives meaning to their professional lives. There truly is space in this industry for everyone. And I think our curriculum is broad enough to give our students a taste of all the possibilities that await them. This happens to be a very interesting time for the hospitality industry, and our students are poised to make a huge difference. Our students already have the drive and discipline and passion that they will need to succeed, but our curriculum helps to give them the tools that they will need to reshape the restaurants and restaurant cultures and restaurant culture for the future. Our graduates are working around the globe, and they are assets wherever they land. And that is all I have to say.
Thanks, Randi.
We have a question for Randi. Can I work while in school?
Oh. You can. There's no rule against it, but I would say it's very, very difficult. Our first year students are generally in class from 8:15 in the morning, Tuesday to Saturday, and a couple nights a week they'll be in school until as late as 9:30 at night. Sort of our schedule rotates, and so they may find themselves having quite long days, and it's hard to fit a job in. You do have Sundays and Mondays off, but you need time for homework and laundry and doing grocery shopping and also just relaxing a bit. So every year there are some students that do find that they need to work. It can be done, but it's tricky. I'll generally work with students to help you manage your schedule a little bit.
Great, thank you. One more question. Can I specialize in, say, pastry at school?
No, our program is a comprehensive program, and all of our students do everything. So even if, pastry is what makes your heart sing and is where you see yourself taking your career, you will come to Stratford Chefs School and you'll still learn butchery and cookery and food history and nutrition. It's a complete package. And even if you go on to specialize in the future, I think you'll find that a comprehensive culinary education will serve you well, regardless of what you go on to do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the questions for now.
Okay.
Can I go on, Clara? Oh, we seem to have a glitch.
You're on, Elizabeth.
Oh, thanks, Clara. Jennifer, thank you for fielding the questions. I was remiss in not introducing Jennifer Otterlaney, who is our marketing and administrator who keeps all of us organized and keeps the students focused and, as I said, organized. You meet Jennifer at the administration offices very quickly when you start attending school. Thanks, Jennifer. We'll be hearing more from Jennifer later on. Okay, Randi, thank you. Now I'm going to bring in Daniel and Jazmyn. Daniel and Jazmyn are both working at Elora Mill Hotel and Spa in Elora, Ontario. And as I mentioned, they're both recent graduates. Jazmyn has just over a year of work experience under her belt, and Daniel does too, because he had that experience beforehand. Daniel, I am going to ask you to tell us about your passion for the program in relation to the dining room experience, creating those new dining room experiences every night. And then Jazmyn, I thought perhaps you could share your story and tell us a bit about being a student and coming out of high school, what challenges you encountered, how you overcame them. And my goodness, you are such an inspiration to all of us. And if you can just share how you did it. So Daniel, we'll start with you.
For sure. Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here. The dinner labs at the Stratford Chefs School were part of my favorite experiences at school. You start off with a lab designed by the school, and then you're able to do the inspired labs from Michelin chefs, and then work with your chef instructor and design a lab that has more meaning towards your style of cookery that you'd like to present. And then at the end of the year, Chef Randi looks to kind of pair us up with a guest chef that she thinks would resonate well with our cooking vision and would inspire us to grow as a chef. Actually presenting the labs every 5 days of the week was fulfilling. Seeing myself grow from week 1 to week 16, seeing the different dishes I was able to put up and see how my skills improved and how I became more efficient, and everyone around me became smoother, faster, quicker, and just better, and worked better as a team. It just was really inspiring and was a pleasure to work with and experience in the school. There was a real passion throughout all the labs, especially come near the end when the guest chef labs, and you realize that you're coming to the end of the school year and these are going to be the last time that we're working with all our fellow students. And being able to kind of put all of our energy into these dinners and present them to the public, and they're super receptive. They tell you what they like. They tell you maybe some things didn't work out, and you're able to discuss that with the public when you're serving the menus. And it is a dinner, but it's also like a learning experience, which is the best of both worlds, I find.
Thanks, Daniel. Jazmyn, can you tell us a bit about your experiences?
Yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed my time at the chef school, and it was surprising to me how much I learned in that short amount of time. I had worked in the kitchen a little bit before I started the chef school, so I knew a little bit of what I was getting into in terms of cooking in the cooking industry. Because it's so short, it's definitely a lot and it's challenging in the short amount of time. But I look back at it sometimes and I'm surprised with how much I learned. It's right from the get-go, you're running and you're learning right away. You gotta get a rundown of this is how it's gonna go. And then boom, you start and labs are going. You're serving, you're cooking, then you're in classes and homework starts. And it's crazy. But it's so wonderful and you're learning so much. I remember by the end of the year and the start of the year, looking at people and comparing their growth is crazy. It's a struggle, but it's very fun. The people you work with are inspiring, and the people you meet are inspiring. I found going to class and everyone helping me and everyone helping each other and learning from each other and learning from the teachers was a wonderful time. And it's great to get to know everyone and work with everyone. And as Daniel was saying, and Randi, the guest chefs that come in and that we go and work with are also, you learn so much from them, and going on to work with them is wonderful, and see who goes where. It's a very, very fun to watch everyone.
Thanks, Jazmyn. Randi, you spent 33 weeks with both Daniel and with Jazmyn, and I know that they were both very good students. What are your best recollections of both of them?
I worked with Jazmyn for her own student design menu. Jazmyn wanted to, plant-based cooking was important to Jazmyn. And she wanted to do a vegan student design menu, which I think is a brilliant idea. And it's kind of the way forward for a lot of people. She wanted to do a beet lava cake. And we were working and workshopping this recipe and trying and how to get it so that you cut into it and the beet filling flowed out of the chocolate cake properly. And Jazmyn, how many times did we try that cake?
Many times, many times.
That was a lot of recipe testing, but just Jazmyn's commitment to serving food that really met her standard in terms of, the ethics and concerns of serving vegan cuisine, but also having it be a true gastronomic experience and have the dessert eat on the plate the way it should, just not being willing to compromise either of those things. It took days to sort of nail exactly how long the cake had to be in the oven and exactly how thick the filling had to be. It was just, I think, speaks to Jazmyn's discipline and commitment to her craft and genuine good palate. She knew what she wanted and she knew what she wanted it to taste like. And that was just that spoke to her strength as a student and is a thing I remember. I will always remember about Jazmyn, working on that ridiculous and lovely cake. And then Daniel's a recent graduate, so he's still very, very fresh in my mind, and just what a personality. But I teach this level 2 gastronomy class, and Daniel was just always in tune and on time and prepared and had really considered sort of the ramifications of what we do in this industry and how do we improve it, and really helped animate the class by pushing everyone to really think about the issues that we were talking about. Just a very sensitive and curious and inquisitive mind is one of the things I respect most about Daniel.
Thanks, Randi. Jennifer, did any questions come in?
There's one. What is a so-called normal day of school like for a level 1 student? You've kind of touched on it, but maybe you two could take us through what that would be like.
Shall I answer this?
I think Daniel and Jazmyn should answer it.
Okay.
So for me in level 1, practical cookery is kind of what you start with in the day. So around 8 o'clock is when practical cookery comes in. So you're getting in maybe around 7:45, getting changed, and you're in the kitchen like 8:50 or 7:50, like 10 minutes, just so you can have everything prepared. So at 8 o'clock, you're starting your practical cookery class, be it with whatever chef instructor you have. Practical cookery goes for about 4 hours till maybe about 12 o'clock midday. And you get, I think there's about like a half-hour break between your practical cookery ending, and then you finish your evenings with a couple theory courses. So it'll rotate throughout the week. You'll have a wine class, you'll have a communications, food costing, like math class, larder and different kind of classes related to cookery, nutrition. And then throughout the year, it kind of always stays like that. Like you start with your practical cookery, end with your theory courses, and then maybe three times a week, you are participating in as a level 1 student in the dinner labs in the evening. So they start around 5:30 is when our level 2s will be setting up the dining room to serve the guests. Guests come in at 6. And so from 6 o'clock to 9:30, level 1s are assisting run the dinner lab, level 2s. I think that's about a level 1 schedule.
That's great. Jazmyn, do you have anything to add? Maybe what's your favorite part of the day?
My favorite part of the day was definitely cookery. In the morning and getting to eat all the delicious food we made. And yeah, the rotation between pastry and classes and service at night. Yeah, I think Daniel, it's a pretty average day for level 1s.
If I can just interject, I think one important thing to note is that you are part of a team. And so even though the day can seem long, you're with your team and you're all working towards a collective goal every single day. And there's lots of opportunity for laughter, for jokes, for snacks, and for camaraderie.
That's great. That's the end of the questions for now.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Randi, Daniel, and Jazmyn. It was wonderful, Randi, that you did such a beautiful job describing your hopes and aspirations for the students and what actually goes on. And then it was wonderful to hear from Daniel and Jazmyn how that made you feel and how you experienced it. Because of course, everyone experiences differently. And it was nice to have two perspectives from Daniel and Jazmyn. Now, I'm going to introduce you to Kim Cosgrove, who is our Executive Director. As I mentioned before, she's also a Stratford Chefs School graduate. Kim is responsible for the running of the school, the oversight of the school, and she also deals with OSAP and private career colleges, the apprenticeship program. Kim, well, to put it simply, Kim wears many hats. So Kim, I'm going to invite you to speak a bit to our guests and just give us your thoughts on the school.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you everyone for joining us today. As Elizabeth mentioned, I'm a graduate of the school. I graduated in 2003. I'm also from Stratford originally, so I've had a lot of experience living in the community and a lot of experience with the chef school. Like Randi, I did not anticipate my life would end up in the cooking world. I went to university in Kingston for a very different, with very different plans, a degree in biology. But when I came back to Stratford and decided to enroll in the chef school, it actually helped me in anatomy and butchery and those types of things, and also just understanding plants and vegetables and all of the kind of science that goes into the work that we do in the kitchens, in both pastry and in the theory classes as well. So the pieces I deal with mostly are some of the nuts and bolts in relation to the ministry, kind of where the school sits in terms of ministry regulation, apprenticeship, financial aid opportunities, and those types of items. The school is an apprenticeship program almost completely. Most of our students qualify to be apprentices. And what that means is that when the students become enrolled in the school, they sign an apprenticeship contract with the ministry. The ministry at this point in time is the Ministry of Labor. It's a provincial ministry. And the ministry contracts the school to offer the in-person training piece of that apprenticeship contract. So there's two parts to an apprenticeship contract. The apprentice must do the in-school training piece, which the chef school offers. And then they also do the work experience piece. So which then after you finish school, you go out and work with your employer. And that's the second part of sort of the commitment that you make with the ministry. What goes along with all of that is a curriculum that's regulated by the ministry. So when you leave the chef school, you have a provincial credential, which is considered throughout the province and also throughout the country as the standard in cook training. It also allows us the opportunity to offer OSAP and things like that in terms of financial aid to students. So OSAP is probably the most popular of the financial aid options. It can be quite complicated, but most people, depending on their situation, do qualify for something. There's a combination of both grants and loans that they're eligible for. And for those who aren't eligible for OSAP, there's a special apprenticeship loan, which is kind of viewed as the OSAP for apprentices. The paperwork is much less daunting. And essentially you just have to have an apprenticeship contract to qualify for that. So many of our students go that route as well. And then on top of all of that, we have a very generous community of donors who help us build scholarship funds and offer bursaries and things like that to our students, based both on financial need, but also on academic excellence. So that just to help students fund their tuition. Another piece of the apprenticeship puzzle, which is popular, is that there are some sort of incentive grants. So when you sign an apprenticeship contract with the ministry, every level that you successfully complete, there's a financial incentive to do so. So for the first level 1, once you complete your first year as an apprentice, there's a $1,000 grant that you can apply to get It comes directly from the ministry just as a sort of a credit to you for having completed that level. And then there's another one after level 2. And then once you get to the point where you complete level 2 and you're ready to challenge your exam, which from a federal point of view is often called the Red Seal exam. Then once you successfully complete that, there's another grant you can apply for that's a $2,000 grant. So those are some of the financial incentives that come with apprenticeship. There are a lot of other wonderful things that aren't necessarily financial incentives, but are very, sort of in terms of recognition of your credentials and that type of thing. It's kind of the gold standard in Ontario. And in terms of living in Stratford, I have lived here for most of my life. As Randy noted, it's very much like the school community. It's very small, it's very personal. It's an arts, sort of very culturally inspired community, and a restaurant and food centered community as well. So often people come to the chef school and don't anticipate staying in Stratford, but they end up doing so based purely on just falling in love with the community, which is always wonderful to hear. We have a few partnerships that kind of impact the student experience. We don't have an accommodation per se because we are a very small organization, but we do have partnerships with a lot of the accommodation providers that provide accommodation for tourists in the summer season. They offer accommodation in the winter season to our students. So again, they're very small community, personal relationships. And oftentimes we find students, especially when it's their first time away from home, they're sort of comfortable living with someone or a couple of roommates in a bed and breakfast accommodation versus something kind of on their own that they're unsure about. Those are the areas that I deal with mostly. Elizabeth, did I miss anything?
Kim, can I ask you to spend a few minutes and just talk about the history of the school, because I know we have an important anniversary coming up.
Absolutely. So the school began in 1983. Next year will be our 40th anniversary, which, as Elizabeth notes, is a very important anniversary, and we're all very excited to get to that point. The school began with two co-founders, both of whom owned restaurants. So what they found, because Stratford is a very seasonal town, obviously with the Stratford Festival being the driving force for tourism, which has been here for 60 years. What these two restaurant owners found was that they really had trouble finding staff. And they also really had trouble bridging the gap in the winter when their restaurants weren't open. So they decided to open a school that would solve both of those problems. So the school rented the restaurants in the winter and then trained the staff that the restaurants then hired in the summer. It's an incredibly entrepreneurial model. We often have guest chefs from Europe who are fascinated by it. It's very smart and probably very before its time. And the school ran that way for the first 30 years, renting those two restaurants. The two restaurants were the Old Prune, which is now the New Prune, where Randy is the chef, the co-chef. And the second restaurant was Rundle's, which is no longer a restaurant, but still exists as a sort of an accommodation, a long and short-term accommodation. So that relationship came with many benefits. After 30 years, when the restaurateurs were ready to retire, things got a little bit complicated for the school. So what we ended up doing was making the decision to build our own space. So what we now have for the last, 9.5 years, what we have had is sort of just a bit of a different plan. It's as though the school grew up and built a home for itself. And we're now able to function 12 months of the year, which was one of the challenges. I mean, the motto was inspired and incredible in many ways, but I think there were challenges on both sides, as there always are with these types of things. And building our own space allowed us to now run programming year round, which we've branched into recreational cooking classes, which we didn't have the opportunity to do in the past. But it always was a dream when the tourists are all in Stratford to be able to capture some of that energy and the visibility that the school gets now, especially being right on Main Street, is just, something we couldn't have garnered in the old system, as wonderful as it was. So 40 years next year, Elizabeth, and I can't wait to talk more to you about what we're going to do to celebrate.
Yeah, it's quite exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim.
You're welcome.
Jennifer, did any questions come in?
Yeah, we have a few here. The first is, how difficult is it to find work placements between the levels? Maybe Randi could answer that one.
Yeah, I would say our students are in demand across Ontario, nationally, and even internationally. And our students between level 1 and level 2, and then after they've graduated level 2, our students can basically write their own ticket and go wherever they'd like. At the end of week 12, so after week 12 of the 16-week school year, I sit down with each student and meet with them to discuss what they would like their next steps to be, whether they're planning for that, whether they're planning for that time in between level 1 and level 2, or they're looking for their next big step after they've graduated. I want to help them to find a job that's going to be right for them and is going to fulfill their needs. And we'll take them where they want to go. And then in that time between our meeting in week 12 and the end of school in week 16, if there's connections that I can make between the student and a chef that is of interest to them, or a restaurant that's of interest to them, I've got some time to help them put those plans into place. So while we don't find placements for our students per se, we certainly facilitate them.
The next question is, how difficult is it to find a place to live? Does the school help students find an apartment? Who wants to take that one?
Well, I think Kim spoke to that a bit.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a list.
I think Jennifer deals mostly with this, but I can hear what she's talking about on the phone. I think it can be difficult depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a single apartment, let's say, or a single room or something like that. There are a number of apartments that just change hands, students to students throughout the year, and students sublet, and then they stay for the winter. And our term is so short for those students that don't stay in Stratford and work over the summer. Often a really short-term thing is all they're looking for. So the B&Bs offer that kind of opportunity. I would say, I mean, we've never had anyone who's not found somewhere that I know of. Absolutely.
Okay, the next question, how is the transition from classwork to a working kitchen? Maybe Daniel could answer that one for us. Is he there? I think you're on mute, Daniel.
Yep. Sorry, I just got it. I found a lot of the skills I learned in practical cookery were the fundamental skills required to work in a kitchen. A lot of the kind of decision-making skills I found that are necessary to work a successful service in a real-world kitchen. I found I developed a lot of those in the level 2 dinner labs. Being able to understand, I'm serving 40 people tonight. This is a menu that we prepped for last night. These are the components to my dish. Here's how I have to set up my station so that I can get these 40 plates out successfully and efficiently when the ticket comes and it gets called. So being able to do that 3 times a week with a completely different menu, different thing that you're prepping for, and different components, different station setup is really it allows you to understand how to operate efficiently in a kitchen.
Great. Maybe Jazmyn could answer the next question. Based on the regular day, what was the outside of class study homework load like?
First year was definitely heavier than second year in terms of homework. You had a lot more papers and a lot more paperwork, and again, like fundamentals, learning the history, writing papers on that. In first year, in terms of workload outside of school. Second year was definitely a little bit less. Your projects are bigger towards the end of the year, so the workload is maybe a little bit bigger towards the end of the year. First year, you're learning to prepare yourself for the end of the year, I would say maybe is workload between the 2 years.
Okay. Another question is, coming back to the inquiry about pastry specialization, could the guests comment on how the diversified curriculum helps you decide if and in what way you might specialize in a particular area or type of cuisine? Randi?
Yep. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to love or what's going to make your heart sing until you get a chance to try it. And our curriculum, I thought it was going to be pastry that makes my heart sing as well. And I just didn't know what else was out there. And our curriculum lets you try a lot of different kinds of things. You get to try all kinds of butchery. You get to try all kinds of different styles of cuisines. You get to spend a lot of time learning about wine. You get to spend a lot of time doing service on the floor, like dining room service. And people come to the school with an idea. They might have an idea of where their career is going to take them, but they just haven't explored everything that's open to them. And I think having that opportunity to explore in a fairly low stakes way, you know, you're not committing to take a job or sign a contract to do something. You're here to just absorb everything we have to offer. It just broadens your perspective on where your career might take you. A lot of students find, they get worried about doing service on the floor. But then you'd be surprised at how many of our graduates go on to do front of house work. They become sommeliers and maitre d's and career servers because they actually find that that kind of open-handed approach to hospitality really fulfills them. So you just never know where your career is going to take you. And taking the time to try a little bit of everything, I think, is a really, really smart investment in your future career.
Great. There's a couple more. Two parts of the same question. Are there networking opportunities with businesses in Stratford? And when is the best time to apply for the program? For example, September 2024.
Go ahead, Randi.
I won't speak to the applications process, but I will speak to networking opportunities. Our school, this is a small school, and we are very firmly rooted in the Stratford community. On a daily basis, we work with businesses in our community. Stratford is so blessed with the kind of businesses the kind of restaurateurs and consultants and artists and teachers and actors, and we really open the school doors to all members of our community. And so we have people come in as guest speakers, as critics, as guest judges, as guest chefs. We purchase goods from local farmers. We interact with the local community on a daily basis. And so there is always that opportunity for networking and community building. Plus also in the wintertime, the dinners are a huge draw. And so members of the community, business owners, fellow chefs come to our dining room, and there's that opportunity to meet and network with people there as well when we're serving.
Jennifer, I'll speak to the admissions question. In fact, we are taking applications right now for not only October 22 intake, but also June of 2023 and October 2023. October 2024, which is what I believe was referenced. While we're not taking applications, certainly we would want to talk to you and have a conversation, answer all your questions, and get you in our system so that we keep in touch with you.
Great. There's a couple more. Have any of your students started their own business rather than working in a restaurant? Randi.
Yes, they have. No, Kim mentioned that the model for our school is sort of geared towards our entrepreneurship. And, for the most part, our students are not graduating and then opening a restaurant right away. But we are trying to give our students the tools that, should they want to take that entrepreneurial step, they will have they will be equipped with a toolbox that will allow them to start moving in that direction. And so quite a number of our students have opened restaurants, they've opened bakeries, they've opened ice cream shops in Toronto, restaurants in Toronto, wineries, they've consultancies, restaurant or recipe development consultancies. So our students have gone on to do all kinds of businesses of their own rather than just working in a restaurant. Yes, the answer is yes.
Great.
Jennifer, I think there's one more question.
Okay. Let me just make sure there's not another new one here. Someone would like to know how long the break is between level 1 and level 2. It's 8 months. I know that much. People
it's
take
an
a
8
break,
month.
And ideally,
there's an 8 month break between level 1 and level 2, and we encourage students to just take a rest, do some resting after week 16. But then our students, during that internship period between level 1 and level 2, our students go off and work in the world. They get jobs in restaurants, in bakeries, wineries, and they spend that time, first of all, making a bit of money, but also building on some of the skills that they've started to develop in level 2 in sort of a real world setting rather than just a school setting.
Level 1, you mean? Yeah.
Okay, I think we are just about out of time. Daniel and Jazmyn, I want to thank you as valued alumni of our school for participating today. It is just such a pleasure for me to always hear from you. You both inspire me. Kim, Randi, thank you for helping me with my first webinar. We hope that our guests have learned about the school, learned about what it takes to be a chef school student. Jennifer, thanks for keeping us on track all the time, not just during this webinar. If you would like information on the application process, if you want a tour of our campus, we are here for you and we would love to meet you. Please reach out, whether you call us at 519-271-1414. You can email me at admissions@stratfordchef.com. Just please think about a career in the hospitality industry. We are here to train the best chefs. We love what we do, and we really want to work with you to succeed. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope you'll come back again for our third webinar, which will be announced by the end of the week. Thank you.
Craving this other, but then they die. They sink it tougher for what they discover. And each of us has their own ride.